higher level. So that also comes back to, I did want to talk a little bit about free will. So when you create something, like my grandfather said, you create something with your imaginal acts, like you're counting $100 bills. You're trying to manifest $100,000. So you start counting $100 bills in your imagination, and you fall asleep doing this multiple nights, and you land it. And then after you land that and you impress the subconscious mind with the feeling of counting the money, you've imaged it, you've thought about it, you've imaged it, then you felt it, and then you fell asleep and impressed the subconscious mind. And once you decide, you can decide that you don't want it at that point, but you're going to get it because you've lost free will at that point. Once you have impressed the subconscious mind with an idea, you are now going to be impressed by the subconscious mind into a new person, a new concept of self. So you are no longer the old version of yourself. You're the new version of yourself. So you have lost the prior free will that you thought that you had. Because even if you decide that you don't want the $100,000 anymore, it doesn't matter. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is chapter 15, The Crown of the Mysteries by Neville Goddard, Power of Awareness. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. And as always, I'm going to give you my narrative right along with this. I really enjoyed this chapter. It's a short chapter, but I'm going to try to expound as much as possible. That way we can jump into this. And it's about the immaculate conception, basically, with Mary. And essentially, the Crown of the Mysteries is about the immaculate conception that was created, where Mary was impregnated by God himself. So the symbolic version of it was God implanted a seed within Mary and produced Jesus Christ. So basically the symbolic version of that story, but the real meaning behind it was that you come up with your own idea and you impregnate yourself with that idea by assuming a state or a thing that you want to do, be, or have, and it comes from you. So it's an immaculate conception, which is assumed by you. It's a thought that comes from you. It's an idea that comes from you that you impregnate into yourself. So basically that's what this chapter is, but we're going to break that down. That way you understand how you can do this and the symbolic nature of the Bible as it relates to this. Okay, so the assumption of the wish fulfilled is the ship that carries you over the unknown seas to the fulfillment of your dream. I love that statement. Okay, so the assumption of the wish fulfilled is the ship. Okay, the assumption is the ship that carries you over the unknown seas to the fulfillment of your dream. The assumption is everything. The assumption is everything. And remember, it's a psychological world. So all you have to do is assume something. Everything is connected. Everything is within. The physical world of separateness is an illusion. It's a hologram. It's not real. So the assumption is everything. Okay, so realization is the subconscious and effortless. Realization is subconscious and effortless. Okay, so assume a virtue if you have it not. That's from William Shakespeare from Hamlet. Okay, so act on the assumption that you already possess that which you sought. Act on the assumption that you already possess that which you sought. Okay, so blessed is she that believed, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told her from the Lord. Luke 1:45. Here we go. Immaculate conception. Okay, so as the immaculate conception is the foundation of the Christian mysteries, so the assumption is their crown. Psychologically, the immaculate conception means the birth of an idea in your own consciousness, unaided by another. So basically what he's saying is the Bible's version of the immaculate conception was the physical version, was your 3D version, which doesn't really exist. Okay, so it's a metaphor for using it psychologically, because the only world that actually exists is the psychological world. Physical world doesn't exist. It's an illusion. It's a hologram. So get that in your mind when you're trying to create, because that's how you can extend your feelers and really start manifesting, is when you know that down into your heart, down into your core, that the physical world that you're living in is just a hologram. It's an illusion. It's not real. It's artificial. The only real world is the psychological world. Okay, so psychologically, the immaculate conception means the birth of an idea in your own consciousness, unaided by another. So it's an idea that you came up with yourself. Okay, so and you impregnated yourself with this idea, and then you assume that this idea was already fulfilled. And then you persisted in that idea until it came into fruition into your 3D world, but it all began psychologically. And then it's just produced outwardly from your psychological feelings and assumptions, and then produced in your 3D world where you can actually see it and then have some fun with it. Okay, so for instance, when you have a specific wish or hunger or longing, okay, so it is an immaculate conception in the sense that no physical person or thing plants it in your mind. You planted it in your own mind, okay? So when you have a specific wish or something that you want or you desire, you have a longing for, a hunger for, this is an immaculate conception. That's what the Bible was trying to say, in the sense that no physical person or thing plants it in your mind. That's what the Bible symbolically was trying to tell us, okay? So it is self-conceived. Every man is the Mary of the Immaculate Conception, and birth to his idea must give. Okay, so every man is the Mary of the Immaculate Conception, basically. So that's what the Bible was trying to interpret and tried to explain to us, but it was explained as a physical concept rather than a psychological concept, which we use inwardly and implant our own ideas into ourselves. That way we can manifest things into our 3D world ourselves and implant those ideas. Okay, so the assumption is the crown of the mysteries because it is the highest use of consciousness. The assumption, the power of the law of assumption is the most powerful, is the crown of the mysteries because it is the highest use of consciousness. Like the law of attraction is no good without the law of assumption. A thought without an image, which that image creates a feeling, doesn't work. A thought by itself doesn't create anything. That's why a lot of people, when they watch The Secret or they do those things with The Secret where it just talks about thoughts and not so much feelings and imaging, like Neville Goddard says, using your imagination, they will produce nothing. So it kind of gave a bad name to the law of attraction or manifesting things into your world because it didn't carry through. It didn't explain it properly about imaging and using a thought to image and then image into feeling and then assuming the feeling as it being real in the first person. You're actually you're thinking from it, not of it, and not third person, but first person. Okay, so, all right. So when in imagination you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are mentally lifted up to a higher level. Okay, so when in imagination you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are mentally lifted up to a higher level by assuming. So when through your persistence or sustaining the feeling, sustaining persistence, okay? So this assumption becomes actual fact. When you can sustain the feeling in your image, and impress the subconscious mind, fall asleep with that assumption, with persistence. So you have to persist in your imaginary clip with the thought, the image, and the feeling, and then assume that you have it, and then sustain yourself in that feeling, and then drift off to sleep. That's when it becomes an actual fact. That's when it will be created into your world. You have now impressed the subconscious mind, which will now impress you and your world, your 3D world, which is artificial, not a real world. It's only the psychological world is the only real world there is that's produced outwardly. Okay, so when you have created that feeling and assumption and visualized it and persisted in that, then it will be produced in your outer world through the subconscious mind and the seeds being dispersed into your world to make all those things happen. Okay, so when through your persistence this assumption becomes actual fact, you automatically find yourself on a higher level. So that also comes back to, I did want to talk a little bit about free will. So when you create something, like my grandfather said, you create something with your imaginal acts, like you're counting $100 bills. You're trying to manifest $100,000. So you start counting $100 bills in your imagination, and you fall asleep doing this multiple nights, and you land it. And then after you land that and you impress the subconscious mind with the feeling of counting the money, you've imaged it, you've thought about it, you've imaged it, then you felt it, and then you fell asleep and impressed the subconscious mind. And once you decide, you can decide that you don't want it at that point, but you're going to get it because you've lost free will at that point. Once you have impressed the subconscious mind with an idea, you are now going to be impressed by the subconscious mind into a new person, a new concept of self. So you are no longer the old version of yourself. You're the new version of yourself. So you have lost the prior free will that you thought that you had. Because even if you decide that you don't want the $100,000 anymore, it doesn't matter. You're going to get it. You're going to get it, and you're going to accept it. It's going to happen in your 3D world because you have impressed the subconscious mind with that. Okay, so when through your persistence, this assumption becomes an actual fact, you automatically find yourself on a higher level. That is, you have achieved your desire. That's the higher level. You have achieved your desire in your objective world. Your assumption guides all your conscious and subconscious movements towards its suggested end. So inevitably, that it actually dictates the events. Okay, so this is very important. Your assumption guides all your conscious and subconscious movements. Your assumption does, conscious and subconscious movements, towards its, or directed towards its suggested end. So inevitably, that it actually dictates the events. Okay, so your assumption dictates all events, conscious and subconscious. Okay, so the drama of life is a psychological one, and the whole of it is written and produced by your assumptions. So your entire world psychologically is pushed outwardly into your 3D artificial world. Okay, so it's a psychological one, written and produced by your assumptions. Learn the art of assumption, for only in this way can you create your own happiness. And you can create your own happiness by creating a psychological world that you want to have. Because why would you want to live a life in this 3D world that you're not happy? That's the ultimate desire for anyone, I would want to believe, is just to be happy. And whatever you need to be happy, understanding it's a psychological world, not a physical world, that in itself makes you want to be happy, because you now can manifest things by using the law of attraction and the law of assumption, creating a thought and then imaging that thought, and then from that image, creating a feeling, sustaining the feeling, drifting off to sleep with that feeling from a law of assumption, thought, feeling, go to sleep, impress the subconscious mind, persistence, discipline, sustaining the feeling, drifting into the subconscious mind, creating a new version of yourself, losing free will at that point, but you're going to get exactly what you want. So that's why the old saying goes, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. All right, guys, let me give you a little recap over this chapter real quick, then we're going to end this one. We have a great chapter coming next, though, from this book right here, The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. Okay, so this is chapter 15, The Crown of the Mysteries. The assumption of the wish fulfilled is the ship that carries you over the unknown seas. So this is the immaculate conception. Okay, so that's what you're implanting, you're part of, or the Bible was trying to tell us that immaculate conception is an idea that you impregnate yourself. It's not from somebody else. It's not an idea that comes from anything outside of yourself. It's an idea that you come up with yourself. You impress this idea within yourself, and then you assume it, and then you bring it into fruition, into your 3D world, which is an artificial world, but you create it psychologically, assuming the feeling, like we just went over with the thought, the feeling, or the image, and then the feeling, then impressing the subconscious mind with it, and then being produced, losing free will. All right, so assume a virtue if you have it not. William Shakespeare by Hamlet. I absolutely love that. All right, guys, I will see you guys tomorrow. Give me one thing you guys are grateful for. I will see you guys tomorrow.